Now, I will warn you, ladies and, like, one gentleman, that Shirley has briefed me, and we will be discussing masturbation. But don't worry, I'm going to lead into that very gently. I'm not going to spring it on you straight out of the traps. That was the other thing that Shirley said.
In the nicest
don't do
possible
that.
way.
It'll be lovely. But you might want to mentally lubricate yourselves and get ready for that, because that's going to happen. Well, obviously we are here to celebrate Lace, the republication, 30 years on. It's a big anniversary for the book this year. Would you have thought, when you first sat here, you know, celebrating its publication, that you would still be here 30 years later and that it would be so relevant?
I was stunned, actually, first of all. I was just glad it sold, you know. I wondered whether anybody would buy it or whether I could write a novel, because all publishers know that if you have a good non-fiction writer, he or she can't write fiction, and vice versa. So I was very successful in non-fiction, so I knew that the cards were stacked against me, if you stack cards. Yeah. But luckily, I proved that I could.
So can I ask what you think of 50 Shades?
Go on, tell us.
Well, I don't think it's a very thoughtful book, but we have to applaud the fantastic success. And we have to applaud, I'm very glad for all the money it's made her and publishers, because I like to see any woman making a lot of money. All the women buying it and buying book 2 and book 3 are needing something which 50 Shades of Grey supplies. So I really can't say more than it's supplying something sexual. And that, of course, leads me straight into masturbation.
Okay.
I watch shows on television, particularly Mock the Week, which I love, and they are hurling jokes about wanking across the floor, but they're all jokes about men wanking. And if you bring up the subject of women's masturbation, as I have once or twice before men, they are deeply embarrassed. And so I think it's sort of the last taboo.
But how do you write a good sex scene, Shirley? What's the key to it?
I think people sometimes ask me if it excites me, and they mean sexually, when I'm sitting there over the computer going... The answer is no, because you're much too busy working out whose hands where. And once my editor in New York said, you do realise you've given the man 3 legs.
Sex and relationships, absolutely central to Lace, but there are, you know, lots of other themes in there as well. And one that I wanted to ask about was work, right, which probably, you know, wouldn't spring to people's minds first. But when I reread it, especially after I'd interviewed you for Red before and you know, found out that you wrote it, you had ME when you'd written it, the passages where people, whoever they are doing their jobs, are absolutely just crackling with energy. They're really alive. And I wondered, and that really interested me. I mean, how important has work been to you in your life?
I was a working mother, and I was very much frowned upon, not only by people of my parents' generation, but also people of my generation and people I've been at school with. You had to pretend you didn't have any children. So if you had a drama with a child, you had to lie, and you had to invent something else about your car's 5th burst tire that week.
When we spoke last time, we had a conversation in which you said that you think that women should understand that for men, money is what matters. Is that
Absolutely. Power is what matters, and the physical sign of power is money. And that is why I'm so keen on equal pay, which I have been right from the beginning, because if you've got equal pay, then everything else follows. I was one of the first people to do what's called the second wave of feminism in Britain. And I was there when it started in a bedsitter. I think they really took things to ludicrous levels, and I understood why, because you simply cannot imagine what it was like at the time, what the woman's deal was. We were all so submissive, and I include myself. But the feminists made a great deal of fuss about you shouldn't hire a cleaner because then that's getting another woman to do your work. Well, was I allowed to hire a man cleaner? I did. Just to sort of stop the argument.
In the afterword of Lace, of the new edition, you say that for you, above all, the book is about female friendship, and you also note, you know, the idea of lacing together and the kind of second meaning of the word. Do you think that's something that occasionally people have missed about it? You know, in the kind of furore of the sex and the scandal and the glamour of it, they sometimes miss the friendships underneath.
I think the people who are making the fuss about the sex and the scandal aren't actually the people who read the book. Basically, I've found that you develop friendships, as I believe they do on film sets. You're all together, you're a little community for a bit, and then you go your separate ways. And if you meet on another film, then you pick up at the same place. Women have a fairly tough life, a fairly difficult life, because we're all being so experimental at the moment, unavoidably. And I think, really, this is the way to look at your friends. If they go off for a period or you don't see them, because I have ME, I'm very lucky in my friends because they understand that there are whole months when I can't see anybody or I can't do anything or I can't speak on the phone and until I'm in remission again. So I have had the most wonderful women friends, and I think I've been extremely lucky. Not so lucky with the men.